everybody out there in YouTube land. This is JD and I'm back at it. So I managed to get myself a spring for a Rolex watch, which is exactly what I wanted and needed. So I'm going to just install that spring into the barrel to start off with. So I'm told online that all I do to install that new spring into the barrel is push it down with a pair of brass tweezers, and make sure you push down the end that has the automatic movement side. So I'm going to do that, and then see what happens. So just by putting the spring down on top of the barrel, and I want to make sure that the barrel is inside perfectly. Yeah, it is. Or the spring sort of tucked into the barrel perfectly. And just push that straight in and see what happens. I don't want to lose an eye here, but it's what I'm told will work. So let's just push that down. See how far down it is. Yeah, it's right along the edge right now. So just want to push that into the barrel. I have a sneaky suspicion this isn't going to work that well. Feels off or something. That's going to spring out on me and cause all kinds of problems. Keeping pressure on the barrel here, trying to make sure that spring gets in there. There we go. It's in there. Not sure if it's in on all edges. There, it seems to be in there. I think it's in. Yeah, well, there you go, it's in. Let me have a look at that. It's in the barrel now, and I don't know if is it in completely? It seems like the edges need to be pushed down just a bit more. Just a tad more, so I'm going to use my brass tweezers. Just flatten that out. Yeah, there. As long as it's higher than where the barrel cap is, I think I'm in business. I'm looking at the edge here to make sure that it's higher than the barrel cap, just to make sure I don't have problems putting that in. Not the way I would typically do this. Be putting it in with a spring winder. Hopefully this has not screwed things up. It looks like it's in there though, as you can see. And again, just looking very carefully at the spring on the edge. The other thing I can do is get out a steak, a flat steak, and not the type you eat for dinner, the other type. So if I get out a flat steak, and just take that steak and push down around the edges, then I should have that in nicely. And I'm using a wooden yeah, that's good. Seems to be in well. Just ensuring that it's in there and it's flat as well. I think I'm good here. I believe I am good. I believe I can fly. See, it's the first time I've ever pushed the spring in. Usually I take it out of the container, and this is, it says General Resort SA. It's a Swiss, very high-end Swiss Rolex spring. I had a choice between buying a cheap Rolex spring and this one, and the lady convinced me that don't go cheap on these things. So she was right, I think. So, and that's the cap for the barrel, but I have to put in the arbor first, right? And make sure that arbor goes in the right way. And I think it goes in with the knobby part down, but I'm going to have to look at the picture again. All right, there's a picture of the mainspring wound around, and I made sure it was wound the right way, which is, I think, clockwise. And then you can see the arbor in there and how that's sticking out. So it's not the square part of the arbor, it's the round part of the arbor that's sticking up. And see what I can do better this time. There's the hook. So let's see if I can ride this thing back in the barrel. I don't know if I like doing this. I love working on pocket watches because they're not as small as these things are. And there we go. It's in again. I'm not sure if it's hooked, but I don't care because I'm going to put the cap on the barrel anyway. I don't want this thing to unhook again. If I turn that around, it should hook onto the barrel. So the cap just snaps onto the top like that. The cap is now on, and when that turns, that should connect and grab that barrel. So I can use my, or grab the arbor. So if I use the arbor here and I turn it this way, it should be able to connect to that spring. So let me just lock on here. And this usually works. Today I'm hoping it does work. So I'm going to turn this like this. And there we go. So I know it's connected now because it's pushing back. As you can see, it's unwinding back. So that's connected to the arbor. So that, I'll just drop this on the mat here because I don't want to play with it anymore. That is the best place for it. So now the barrel and the spring are together nicely. And I could feel it providing perfect tension. And then you want to check. I know you didn't like the way I put that spring back in when I flew back out, but that's life. So those springs will not rust, by the way, or corrode. Those are like Swiss-made steel springs. It says they're unbreakable. Well, obviously they are. So they're good quality spring. And you want to check the edges here, right on there, to make sure that that cap is definitely on. I know in pocket watches you take your tweezers and you push down on all sides, but I can look at it and I can see that that barrel cap is back on there nicely. So there we go. And after you've done that, I've played with it with my fingers a little bit, even though it's brass and it won't corrode. And it's a Rolex, so who knows, it might be friggin' gold plated, but I can roll this on a piece of Rotico to pick up any dirt or anything that might have got between the teeth of the mainspring, right? And now I can start reassembling this watch. Now the first thing I need to do is adjust my Myers number 58 movement holder to put in the smaller, I'll call them dies for now, but the smaller dies to hold the Rolex movement. And this watch, if you're watching out there, Pete, this is done for my son Pete, who was gifted this particular Rolex from his mother-in-law, and it was her husband's Rolex, so it means something to the family, and that's the only reason I'm working on it, Pete, okay, because it means something to the family. So we'll call it that, because I'm a sucker for doing watch work for people I like. And if Bill, you're listening out there, yours is next. So I'm going to dive into that 7750 Valjour either tomorrow or on the weekend and put that thing back together again. So remember the last thing I did on this one here is I put that plate back on, and I have to remember to just tighten that down a little bit. I put the plate back on, and I can't get the mainspring underneath that with the plate on. So what I was going to do here is simply loosen that plate again and slide the mainspring underneath, and then I've got that mainspring in, which is something I was worried about. So that mainspring would go this way, I believe, but I'll make sure I check my old photos to make sure I'm not wrong. And as you can see in the photo, you can see the mainspring sticking up right through here, and that's after this plate is put back on. And you see all the corrosion there? Well, that corrosion should be gone. We'll check that in a second. And so the mainspring sticks up here, and there's a screw that goes on here, and that's where the ratchet wheel goes on top of that plate right there. So, and there's the click spring and the spring in there, which I did not remove from this watch. I didn't think there was any need to remove that spring after for cleaning. And then I've got to press that wheel back on, so I got to be careful when I do that, because up through the center is that very small shaft and pinion that goes right through the center of the watch. So I got to make sure that goes through without a problem. So there you go. That's the problem. So the next step in this adventure, though, is to get that mainspring back in and to put both those plates back in place. So I'll take apart. I'll just loosen this up first because the screw was put in there. I just wanted to hold all the wheels in place. That's why I put that screw down. And if you recall, my yellow screwdriver was magnetized from my last video. So I've completely demagnetized that screwdriver. So now it's good to go. It's not going to cause an issue. It's not going to cause a magnetism issue. And this plate, I think we can just slide all this right under. I'm hoping we can just slide this under. There we go. Look at how well that worked. I'm putting a little pressure on the barrel here to see if the pallet flick for me. Not sure which direction it flicks in. Never mind. Not going to bother with that. I don't need to do a test on that right now. So now I can take that screw and tighten that down again. And just put that down like this. Of course, it jumps into the only hole that's in your watch. That's what always happens when you're working on watches. It's going to be one of those days, is it? I use the amazing Rotico. I'm going to get a close-up here on it. All right, back to work here. I'm being very careful. I took a day off at work to do this. So again, I hope Peter is pretty happy when he gets this watch. So it's a vintage Oyster perpetual Rolex. It's going to be a little tough because of the way the screw is sitting. It doesn't really lend itself to fall into the hole. Alright, there we go. And I'm just going to move this to make sure things are loose. Yeah. So that's good. Tighten that screw. It's funny, this plate just falls down on top here. There's nothing to tighten. And these are resting here. And I think, well, that wheel will sit right on top of this pivot later on. And I think that would be it. So there's points to oil here that I'll oil after I put this together. Some of the points I don't have to oil right now. So I got to get this top plate back on. And if you recall, there was a ton of corrosion there, and it's all gone now. You can't see any corrosion. There's a little leftover, whatever you want to call that. This different kind of lighting, but the corrosion is gone. which is nice. And I think I can just drop this straight down. Let me look at the movement to see what screws I've got where. Yeah, I believe I can just drop this straight down. I got to make sure I put that ratchet screw back in there. So again, this should just drop right on here. Just grab my tweezers, and this is all good. This has all been oiled. Yeah, we're good. And just put that down like this, I believe. They have on these watches alignment pegs. So when you put it down, you know that you're putting it down the right way. And I'm looking at these holes to see if one of these is the alignment hole. And it is. There we go. So that went down on one side, but not on the other. So if you have that problem, just lift it up and then shift it over. Like that. And then when I look at it, I just look and see if that's flat on the on all sides, and it looks like it is. So, because alignment peg that's right here is not coming all the way up; it's just sort of a small knobby, and this alignment peg needs to be down more. So there's always a little bit of adjustment to do here. Let me see, I'll put it in the winding movement here, and that will go down more on this side, which hopefully flattens everything out. I'm looking at it from all angles here to make sure it's all flattened out nicely. I touched that with my fingernail, so hopefully that doesn't leave anything behind. And there's the click spring there, so I just need to put the ratchet wheel back on that, but I think there are screws I need to put in first. Let me look here. There's one screw here, but I'm not sure if that screw goes in after the plate or before the plate. But what I'll need to do is look at, because there's these screws that have to go in here, which are after I put the automatic movement plate down. Those screws go in. So I'm going to look at my pictures again to make sure I don't screw any of that up. So looking at my photo, I can see that there's one screw that goes down, and it's right next up top here, right next to that click spring. So it's right there. That screw needs to go down, so I have to make sure I have that right screw, which I believe I do. And I'll put that in place, but before I do that, there's always the but before. Before I do that, I want to put down the ratchet wheel. Right, but before I do that, I want to do a little bit of oiling, right? A little tiny bit of oiling. And what I want to oil is where that mainspring goes in. And I want to use the right type of oil. And that is I want to oil that with the HP 1300. Or the 9104, HP 1300 or 9104. And again, when I pick oil up, so I just need to oil the edge of that. And I don't have to oil there. And while I'm here, I'm going to oil right here, because that will turn around later. And once I put that oil down, I grab my Rotico and I can get rid of any excess oil that might be there. Again, and get rid of the excess oil so it doesn't cause any issues. And as the parts turn, that oil just spreads itself through, right? So I got a bunch of springs here. So I want to get the ratchet wheel back on, right? I think I'm going to get out my, I know I'm joking with you guys, but my Bergeron 7010 stick. I need to get this stick out, because without this stick, for I am nothing. Without the stick, I am nothing. So I want to just make sure that I can use that stick appropriately, because I want to, when I put this down, I know that I'm going to have to move the ratchet wheel out of the way. I got to put it on the right way, right? So which way does it go? This way or this way? Usually it goes this way because that screw tightens down on top of it and the rest of it is flat. So I'm just going to try to move this up while I put this down. And your best bet is to line it first like that, and then tuck it in, and then allow the ratchet, the click spring, to go back in place like that. And then I can grab the screw here, and that screw should fill that indent nicely. Right. Someone said on a message to me today that I read that there's this other guy that's online that does watch work, and he says he likes the stuff I do because I explain myself better. So thank you for that. There we go. Just wind this puppy a little bit. And you can wind this up. This screw will never loosen because of the direction it turns, right? So you don't have to worry about like tightening the heck out of this screw here because it never loosens. These two screws hold on that winding wheel, right? So now when I touch the pallet fork, it should snap back, and it does. Perfect. That's the test on the pallet fork. Now, can I get a close-up of that test? Can I get a close-up? Let's see, that gonna, yeah, there we go. So there's the pallet fork there. Of course, I just hit the camera, which is like, get my dampening fingers here. So hopefully you can see this. I'll just touch the pallet fork, and then it snaps back. Good. And what that means to me is that that pallet fork will actually go back and forth now. So you could actually put the balance in there, and the damn thing would work, right? So now I got a bonus screw here, and I'm hoping that this bonus screw, this screw right here, is intended to be in this position right here, which I think is where it belongs. I showed you that picture earlier. I'm 99.72% sure that screw goes in there. Now I'm looking at my screwdriver and it's too big. You got to make sure your screwdriver is just slightly smaller than the diameter of the screw you're putting in, otherwise it'll scrape the edges of that plate. So everything is in there nice and secure, so I can tighten that down. And I do want to make sure it's tightened nicely. And that is good there. That's perfect right there. So the other thing I'm going to do here while I'm here is very carefully see if I can, let me just pause my video for a second. Alright, I'm back. So what I want to do here is very carefully remove the setting here. I think I need a smaller screwdriver. And I don't want to ruin that because it's, you know, there's a chance of effing that up. So you got to be super careful at that. And I don't want to do it just because I'm on camera, right? There's one side, and there's the other side. And this just kind of flips out of the way. You can see where it is there laying on top. I may have to get in a little closer so you can see this, but you see that part just right there sitting on top. Well, I'll tell you something right now, I do not want to lose that. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a piece of Rodico and pick it up, because I'm concerned about losing that. So I'll just pick that up, and I'm going to just move that out of the way for now until I'm ready to reinstall it. And then I'll take my world's smallest piece of Rodico and grab that jewel here. It should come right up. Actually, I don't need to grab it, but I did anyway. So there's the cap jewel, right? There's the cap jewel I have, and all I need to do is oil that cap jewel and put it back. So I've never oiled it and then placed it back with Rodico, so I didn't. If I'm not going to do it now, I'm not going to do it later. So I'm looking at the cap jewel, and it's completely flat. So it's a flat cap jewel. There it is right there. And I know you guys are going to yell at me and go, "It's the jewel's on the mat. The jewel is on the mat. Oh my God." And here I'm using 9010, right, which is a very light oil. And let me just show you something before I go on here, because someone tells you I do instructions. So as I put my oiler in, right, if I pull my oiler out fast, like that, I get a big ball on the end of this, right? See if I can show you. There it is there. See a big ball of oil? I get that on the end of it. You don't want that. So if I pull the oiler out slowly, nice and easy, I don't get the ball on the end of the oiler, right? But there's still oil on there. Close that down. And that's just enough oil that I need to put as a small, just a small piece of oil on the end of that jewel, right? So I'll go in really close and I'll just touch that jewel like that, and I look at it, and you can see that small piece of oil just spreading like on top, like a film on top of that jewel. And now I'm going to grab that jewel with my tweezers, turn it around, and put it on top of the watch. So if I screw this up, I just do it again. So it's not the end of the world if I screw that up. I just do it again. So, but it is tricky, and you got to have steady hands, and it is 3 o'clock. So. Now it's only tricky because how narrow this is. Done. So now that jewel, cap jewel, is back on top and it's oiled, which is perfect. And now I'll pause my video and take a breath, and now I want to put in that retaining spring. So if you recall, that's the retaining spring I picked up with my my Rodico, so it would go on back on the watch the exact same way. So I have to flip it backwards, so just bear with me for a second here while I grab it with my tweezers. There, so it's got to go in like this, right? And then there's an edge on there that it'll tuck into. So I'm just going to lay it down for now. And I'm pushing it in with my tweezers, and then I've got to use my amazing Bergeron holding stick here and hold that in place. And I know I have to use the world's smallest screwdriver here, which is an orange screwdriver, to move those arms over. I might go under my stereo microscope to do this because it's so detailed that I don't want to screw it up. I don't want this thing to go flying. That's a big danger. So that is so easy to do under a stereo microscope. I'm telling you, it's nothing. So it looks like this. There's a tab like that. Then it goes around like this, and it goes in and then out, and there's a hook there. And it goes back like that and around again. and it goes, let me do it the right way here, and it goes in and out, and there's another hook there, and then there's the round part here of the jewel setting. It goes around like that. I'm squinting right now, and that's the jewel setting, and all you're doing here is, and that's the outer part of the jewel setting like that. And all you're doing is you're making sure this part is in underneath the lip. And then you're rocking it once to one side like this, and then pushing down with the screwdriver while you hold. In this case, it's so small, I held it like this on the back end and pushed down flat with my screwdriver and then rocked it inside the groove. Then pushed this over, and both this side and this side were in the groove. And then I took my screwdriver and I pressed it down and I rocked it clockwise to make sure this side was in the groove. And then after I looked at it all, these were tucked in all nicely, and then the cap jewel is right here, right? So that's how you put that back in. You can do it without a stereo microscope, but you got to have like a ×10. You can use a ×10 eye loop to do that, right? So there's pretty much no other way. Becomes very, very difficult to do. So that is that part. Let me get my glasses back on and we'll continue with this adventure. So I know on the other side I have a few things I got to put on, like the cannon pinion and all the rest of it, right? So I probably should do that before I put the rotor back in place, because I know that when I put the watch together, I took the rotor off first, and then and it was in the case, right? And then I did the rest. And I'm told that it's a heck of a lot easier when you're working on these Rolexes to do it that way. I have to make sure, though, that I've got that. I've got two things here that I need to deal with, right? Thing one and thing two. Let me get the strap out of the way, and let me just grab the case and put it out of the way. And I know I've got those two jewels on the other side that were acting up, and I believe a pivot jewel, a cap jewel. I've got this piece here that's got to go inside here, right? And then I've got that top cap rotor I need to put on. But before I do all that crapperoonie, and this is the spring for that rotor there, and or that pivot, not pivot, the pinion. I do need to wash these because they're terrible, right? So these need to be washed and or replaced. They look pretty unique though, so I might not be able to replace them. But that's fine. I still need to put the strap through the microsonic, or the ultrasonic cleaner. The microsonic cleaner. So let's look at the other side of this puppy dog here. Flip it around and have a look at where those guilty caps are. I want to just see the condition of those. So I may need to go under the stereo microscope to do this work. I know that these jewels here came from that, but I'm not sure. If I look at this, I've got two nice jewel settings here, and I probably could guess which ones go where, because one of them looks like should be going in the pivot area, and then there's a cap jewel which probably goes on top of that jewel. So I'll figure that out. Then I got the 4 screws that are three of them are the same and one of them is different, right? So it's Sesame Street all over again. So in this case here, I do have the wheels to put back, so that should be a really good time. This wheel comes from let me see, what wheel goes there? Oh, Jesus. I am not sure. It's not the wheel from the automatic movement, so, and I'm short a wheel, so. And this is the side, this is the face side of the watch. So let me figure that out after. So this setting here is the one I want to look at, because this looks like it's kind of mangled a bit. I want to see maybe I can flatten that out and deal with that. So, and that's the where the barrel is. While I'm in this part of town, I'm going to grab a little oil and put it on the barrel. And that'll just help that barrel float around on the plate. So that's that there. And again, like I did before, I'm going to clean that up with a little Rodico, so that doesn't get too much oil splashing around on the plate, which is good. All this stuff was oiled already. I oiled that, as you recall from the past video. I do need to take this jewel setting out and oil that, which is good, but I want to take a look at this jewel setting here because it looks pretty friggin' mangled. And there was another jewel setting somewhere in this watch that I think, yeah, I'm trying to figure out where that other jewel setting went. Maybe it was on there. Anyway, I'm going to go under the stereo microscope and have a look at where these jewel settings need to go. And just in case you think I'm full of crap, there's my stereo microscope. I got some stuff on the end here I want to store, but I did get a free storage container here that has storage drawers and everything that I'm going to use to store parts. But that's the stereo microscope, and I also broke my camera stand a bit, so I got to fix that later. So that jewel setting that looks a little mangled up right here isn't that mangled, and it's the jewel setting for the balance. So that's the lower balance pivot goes on top of that, and I believe that there's two jewels here that I got to figure out which one goes on there, but I'll put them on and they'll size properly. But then I still have another jewel setting, and I'm not sure where the heck it goes, unless it was a bonus jewel setting somewhere. So I'll look for that as well, but I'll have to put those two settings in there. Alright, I'm going to be really brave here. So I believe that first setting, I have it sitting, the setting sitting on here. And I believe that first setting is actually for the lower balance. And there's a cap jewel as well that I have attached to a piece of Rodico. So if I can move this up and out of the way, I'll be all set. There we go. Now I should be able to put that jewel right in there, and I believe it's the right jewel. We'll see in a second, because if it's the wrong jewel, it won't fit very well, and that's a given. So let me just turn this whole rig around, because I want to make sure that everything is positioned correctly. There we go. Now I got to look and see if that's fitting perfectly. Because if it's not fitting right, it actually does look like it fits right. So that goes on there, and then the cap jewel goes on top, and then I've got to snug that cage over both of them. I'm a little concerned about the cage, but it actually looks in fairly good shape, but this watch might have taken quite a hit to make that cage move out of the way. So I'm going to just put a little dab of oil on that cap jewel like I did before, and then move that cap jewel. And it's a flat, I'm lucky because it's a flat cap jewel. I'm not too concerned about it. It's not rounded at all. I am going to take a piece of pegwood here and rub the top of that cap jewel. Now I'm in your way here, but if you're looking here, I'm just going to rub that ever so lightly on the top. A piece of pegwood. Now when I look at it in reflection, I should see that it's clean. Let me rub that again here. And that's just to get rid of any residual gum or oil or anything else that was on that. So it looks pretty clean now. Yeah, that's good there. And just like I did last time, I got to use the right type of oil. And I'm going to pull the oiler out slowly, like I said before. Just put a little bit of oil on top of that cap jewel. There we go. That's all you need. Now I'm going to lift that cap jewel up and put it right on the cap. This is this, like I said, look at the size of my hands, and look at the size of that jewel, and look at the size of those tweezers. So I may F this up, but like I said, I'll just do it again. So the toughest part is rolling your tweezers while you're holding that jewel. I'm trying to drop that in a place and it doesn't want to drop. So what I'll do is I'll take my world's most expensive stick, there. Now everything is in place, and I would have to tuck this in, like rotate it in. So I'm going to do this under the stereo microscope to make sure I don't screw that up. So that's all in place right now here, and I want to make sure everything is tucked in well. Otherwise I'm going to have to look for another cage for that setting, right, to make sure it's the right size. So I'm going to bring that to my stereo microscope again and work on that. So you can see why it would cost a lot of money to have a Rolex serviced, because there's a lot of work. And Rolex does a lot more work than I even do. So with that particular setting, it was a cage setting, so there's a little bit of a cage on there. See if I can rotate that or focus in at all on that. Yeah, I can see it a bit, so it looks a bit like looks like the SS or something there. so you there's a little indent on the setting itself, so you put it into the indent and you take your screwdriver and rotate this over here. You rotate that as clockwise, and it tucks underneath the edge or the rim of the setting, right? And that's how you put that in, as opposed to this other one where as I told you before, the other one that's down here, where I gave you the diagram and showed you how I push that in. So that's the two settings there. I can't find an additional wheel that goes here, so I'm a little confused with this wheel, with respect to this wheel, because when I looked at the picture of the movement, and as well, I can't find anything there either. So maybe there's nothing that goes in there. I'm wanted to say, I'm thinking, right? So those are done. That's good. I think I'm done on this side. Let me look again to make sure I'm not screwing myself up, and just flip this over a bit and have a look at it. There we go. Yeah. So that's that. This and that. This and that. Yeah, I think we're good. Doopy doopy doo. You know what? I think I got to do one more setting there. I'm going to do that under the stereo microscope. I'm going to try to do that right in front of you. So I tucked out one side. And it's pretty easy to tuck out the other side now. And there it is. And there's the evil setting. I'm going to do like I did before and pick that up with a piece of Rotico, because if I don't, I'll lose it. I'll just put that down on the mat here. And then I'm going to pick the cap jewel up like so. There we go. That's the cap jewel on the end. Lay that down on my mat like this. And those cap jewels are flat, which is a wonderful thing. I don't have to worry about the curvature of the cap. Actually, they're not flat. I lied. This side is the side that goes down. So I was right before, because I saw the side that was full of the gum from the past and removed that. And so that's good there. And now I just have to get some oil again, and then using Bergeron 9010 oil, pull it out of the oiler really slowly, and then I just drop it right like that. Perfect. Now I could have double cameras here to show the oiler and stuff, and I'm not sure whether you guys think that's of any consequence, but like putting another camera in there. but it is going to be more distracting for me. And I'm turning that around with my fingies here and dropping it in. I think there's a bit of gum on my tweezers, so I got to clean my tweezers off. There we go. So that jewel is in place, and then I know I've got to use my stereo microscope to put this thing in, because I will F it up. And I think the rim is the same on all sides of this. So if I just drop that down, I can go to my stereo microscope, unless I'm really lucky here. It's just so much easier with the stereo microscope. You can get super close. I can hold one side while I push the other side in. I know this thing is not going to go fling, and I'm not going to have to make or find another part, right? Because I don't want to do that. So that cap jewel is protecting the pivot of the escapement, by the way. That's how fancy these Rolex watches are. There, that's on now, so we're good there. So we're getting closer here. So the next thing I think I need to do is deal with the face of the watch, wherever that is. Trying to look at where I put the face. I think I put the watch into 3 different locations on my desk. I know I put the face somewhere. Oh, I think the face was put back into the watch itself. So just want to dump that out, because I'm going to want to put the face on actually before I flip it around. And so before I put the face on, I need to, the face goes on this side. I need to make sure the cannon pinion is in place, right? And then outside of that cannon pinion, I got to deal with that little gear on the other side, right? But I can put the face on likely first. So if I just slip the cannon pinion on, and when I do that, I look straight down to make sure the leaves are lined up somewhat, right? I think I need better lighting to line the leaves up, folks. Better lighting to line the leaves up. That's a lot of BL line the leaf. I need a flashlight of some sort. Where's my mega powered flashlight so I can get the leaves lined up properly? I'm going to bring up this. I don't like bringing this flashlight up because it's got a magnet on the bottom, but it's super powered. I'll keep the magnet away. There it is. And I know I can point that in any direction. So if I do that, I can see the other side where the leaves are, the maple leaves, and then I can probably use, to push it down the rest of the way, find a stake that will go right over the whole darn thing and go down, right? That one's too big. So stake hunting now. Stake a hunting. Now the reason I do this is that if you push it down with your screwdrivers, there's that remote possibility that you're going to harm something. Still trying to see if the leaves are lined up. It's hard because of the different I think we're good there. It's hard because of the way the thing is. There we go. That worked perfectly. Now, when I turn this, just have to make sure this is going to work. This is clicking in some way that I don't like. What is it? Let me see. If I do this, this turns, but I'm not sure if I had to support the base to put that cannon pinion back on. Let me look at what I got, because I don't like the way it's moving right now. Because I had pushed it like that, and then there's the gear there. That looks good. Right? Yeah, the plate went up. So this plate actually rode up a bit when I put the cannon pinion on. So what I'm going to do is take that cannon pinion back out again, because I don't want to damage anything. I think I need to support that plate to put it back on. Right? Which is probably the better thing to do. Don't force the parts. So when I push down, that plate pushed back up again. So I can remove that cannon pinion carefully here. Like that. Just get that out of the way for now. And look at that plate on the other side, because I may have to screw something down, because this plate lifted up. And when that lifted up, that might have taken some of the gears out of their position. So usually on a watch, you just push it down and the cannon pinion does its thing. But in this case, let me just move this stuff out of the way here. I got the second hand, the minute hand. Now, did I grab that other hand with my hand and move it? Where's that other hand? Oh, it's in the watch, so I'm good. I was a little bit concerned there, so I'm just looking to see to make sure the pivots are all kind of there. And this would go down. So what smartest thing to do here is to actually loosen that screw again. Here. Loosen this screw here. And then pull that up. And then tighten it down again. I need the right screwdriver. The right screwdriver. I think it's the black one. So if I loosen that up just a bit. The thing is, I got power on the watch right now, and it doesn't like that. Yeah, that's an interesting situation. So you want to actually remove this, and I don't want these gears to come out of where they're supposed to be. I have to look and make sure, and I can for sure I can see that the escapement is no longer lined up with the pivot properly. So that would cause a huge problem. So I have to make sure that that's lined up. Before that plate goes down again. So this means, see, I've pushed that cannon pinion down, but in this Rolex, there's no screws over here that you would put down right away. So it's caused me an issue. So if I can take the power off the watch, right, and I have to do that by using the click spring to take the power off. So this is going to be a bit of diagnostics and stuff to get this thing back, this plate back on properly, because pushing the cannon pinion up took everything else and jogged it over. So it effed it up for me. So trying to think of what I might do here that isn't going to cause a problem. I want to take the pressure off the mainspring, so maybe if I just drag my finger on it, that might do it. Not sure. So we'll try that, and I'll take that plate off. So what I did here is I just used my screwdriver here, and I put a little bit of power on, moved the click spring out of the way, and released the power from the mainspring. So, which I've got to put these plates back in place, but they're all kind of loose now, which is good. And I've got to tweak them to make sure they're all falling into the right slot. So I'll do that and be right back. Alright, so the tweaking was dead easy and it worked, which is nice. So I got to figure out what I tightened and what I didn't tighten here. So I didn't loosen this up, right? That's still tight. This needs to be tightened up, right? So we'll tighten this up here. Oops. Need a smaller screwdriver for this because I'll end up scratching stuff. So that's tight there. I'm thinking I want to put a couple of screws down on this plate here, just because because if I try to put the cannon pinion back on again and the screws aren't on there, I'm going to cause all kinds of problems. So I know I'm going to look at the photo again, because there's 2 shiny screws and there's 3 screws that aren't shiny on the top. So, and I don't have the manual for this watch. So when you don't have a manual for a watch, you're at the whims and wiggles of things like that. So I got 1 screw here, which is likely for the spring to hold down that center pivot thingamajobby doohickey. So I'm going to look at the screw heads here to see which ones. These were the shiny ones, these were the non-shiny ones. And I'm looking picture, and what I want to do is, because this is not down hard, and I can't put the pallet, I can't put the cannon pinion back in again, this guy here, without this being solid. So I need to figure out which screws I can put in to make it solid. And there may be some screws I can put in that aren't part of the rotor mechanism, right? So I did take that completely apart, by the way, and cleaned it and put it back together again. So it's in pretty decent shape, but I got to look at the screws on this, because there's a lot of screw holes, and I think some of these go back in. So anyway, I'm mumbling away right now. I apologize for the mumbling, but I'm going to look on my phone and see if I have a picture of which screws go where. So the bad news is I don't have a picture, so I'm going to have to take a guess here. And what I'm going to do is, I've got a bunch of screws here. I just have to make sure the right ones are in the right positions. So these ones, there's one that goes here to keep this down, and there's 3 that go here, right? But they only go in after the rotor goes in. So if I take one of these screws here, and I'm hoping that the threading is a bit different for these. Like if I screw this in here, let's see if this goes down. Yeah, that is going down nicely, actually. Screw that one in tight. That way I have this in place right now. I'm just going to just put a little bit of wind on here. That's slipping a bit, which is not good. And the reason that's slipping is that that plate is lifting right here. So what I'm going to do is put this screw in here as well, because I don't want the plate lifting. And I will take those back out again when I put the rotor in. That's the problem with the sequence here, is that you gotta, if you don't know the sequence, you're kind of screwed. So I'll put that screw in. Now this thing will wind, because it just takes like the smallest little millimeter for these things to be off a bit, right? So you see, move that out of the way. I think that other setting, by the way, was for the upper jewel and the balance that I'll likely have to deal with after. So there, that's sort of together and it's in there nicely, so I don't have to worry about that pulling out when I put the cannon pinion back in. So let me flip this around and see if I can re-cannon pinion this baby without the plates coming out. So that's a good testimony there that, you know, it's kind of tricky to do that. So we'll put the cannon pinion back in, and maybe I can align it before I push it down. There, your guess is as good as mine. Is that aligned? Oui or no? Now when I push this down, the whole plate shouldn't come up on the other side now. I don't think it's aligned. Gotta make sure the gears are aligned here, the teeth. No, it's not aligned or something. Maybe time to bring out the mega flashlight. That should be deep enough that this can go in without a problem. There we go. Now it's down. Now, if I pull that back, is that going to turn the time? Yeah, it is. Good stuff. Now the time can be changed, as you can see. That works nicely. So, and that's the minute wheel, and then I will have to put in the hour wheel, like that. And on top of that hour wheel, and I got to make sure that's meshed with the pinion on the bottom part. Now it is. So when you turn the whole unit now, you get the hour wheel turning just a little bit and the middle wheel turning a lot. Right? So it seems a little bit stiff, but I think that's fine for a Rolex maybe. And then I got to put in the washer, the dial washer. I'm proud of myself. I'm remembering the names of stuff today. And what that dial washer does is it pushes down on the hour wheel when the look at this stuff here. Yeah, it pushes down on the hour wheel when the face is on, so that the face, there won't be a problem with that face now. And it's funny, there's this part here, but I think this is if it's a date adjust or something, and it's not. So I think that's just leftovers. So this Rolex it would go over the plate like this. So this is going to go over kind of like that, 3 o'clock position. But I've got to loosen those screws to allow the dial to fall down. So I'll just hold it with my fingies like this and turn it sideways. And I think my white screwdriver should do the job. But these screws are intentionally put in all the way in, so when I wash the plate, I wouldn't have an issue, right? There, that's able to go down now. And now the other side, I've got to do the same darn thing with the other side. I can put my thumb over the top because there's no balance stuff or anything else that's in the way, so I'm not too worried about screwing things up. So there we go. So now the dial is down, and let me just tighten that. And you're not getting much of a view there, I apologize. I'm going to tighten this side and then make sure the dial is down on the other side, which it is. There it is there. You can see the dial being down. So now I got to tighten this screw here. And that's the other dial. That's the other screw for tightens on the dial post. And now that's all done. And let me just make sure that there's rotation. And yes, there is. So that rotates in the middle. It's funny, I had some guy email me and say, whatever you do, don't polish anything. So now I'm just seeing if it winds. And it does. And now I will very carefully put it in here. Although at this point in time, I don't want to use this movement holder that much. But I'm going to flick that and see if it moves, and it does. So there we go. It's flicking from side to side. And if you recall before, I did put a special type of oil on the pallet fork, on the actual jewels of the pallet fork. I'm just picking this hour hand up here and getting it out of the way because I do not need to put that on right now. I can wait a little bit till a little later to put that on. So now, as you saw, I took those screws on this side and I put those in place. So when I take those off, I'm going to make sure there's no pressure on the mainspring. So I'm going to show you, I'm just going to take the pressure off the mainspring right now. And the way I'm going to do that, as I said before, is I'm going to it's funny, it's like when you're writing a proposal, right? You say, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this screwdriver and put a bit of pressure on here. And I'm going to let the ratchet wheel wind back and re-grip my screwdriver. Put a little pressure, let it wind back, and I want 0. There we go. So it's all gone. So all the pressure is off the mainspring. So when I undo this screw here, it's not going to fly up because that was my biggest concern. And I still have to figure out what screw goes in what hole, because I think this thing is, it needs the balance next. That's the next thing that needs to go on this. And it even needs to go on before I put on the rotor, because I don't believe I should be putting the rotor on and then trying to put the balance on after. So let me go grab that balance and see what we got going here. All right, there's the balance, and as you can see, the jewel is missing out of there, right? And the cap jewel is likely missing out of there as well, so that needs to be put back. So it wouldn't work well without the jewel and the cap jewel. Just trust me on that one. So I've got to put those two back in place, right? If they're the wrong one, I'll know, right? And the funny thing is, it's hilarious, folks, that this jewel and cap jewel, that's the one that was on the mat, they're kind of stuck together right now. So I got to separate the jewel and the cap jewel and move this balance the heck out of the way, because I will hit it with my hand and it end up in Jersey. So I'm going to move all this crap out of the way, including the watch itself. And I got to very carefully separate the jewel, the cap jewel, from the jewel. You should be able to do this with Rodico, by the way. So I should be able to stick it with Rodico, and the cap jewel would lift up. If it doesn't, there's problems in town. All right, let me see if I can do this under the non-microscope way of doing things. Here we go. So there's the cap jewel off. And there is a flat and slightly domed part of the cap jewel, but it's easy to tell which is which. Just grab that jewel there. And that's clean as heck, which is nice. So I just need to add a bit of oil to that, right? So let's just open up my oil and I just do this. Pull it out slowly like I did last time. Put a little tiny bit of oil on there. And there it is. I can see the oil grouping up. Turns into a little dome of oil on top of the whole nonsense. So I might be able to put the cap jewel on and then take the whole rig and put it on all at once. That way I don't have to take that cap jewel and try to flick it off. And oh no, it didn't turn. It was like a piece of bread with peanut butter on it. It did fall the right way. Oh my God. There we go. So the cap is on there, and now I'm going to put this on top of this, but I'm going to look at this under the microscope again to make sure I got a good looking jewel there, so you can see the retainer, just in case I have to fix that too. So I looked at the whatever these things are called, but I've got more of these. It looks like it's split on one side, but it still might work. But I've got more of these inside my with my watch parts. I'm going to see if I can find one that'll be the same type that'll fit on there. I'm hoping and praying, but if it's not, this one might work. We'll see. Alright, I got like boatloads of these different types of retaining clips. I just don't know whether the one that's used for the Rolex watch would be in here. Plus I bought a whole boatload of more retaining clips, and again, don't know if the one for the top of the Rolex watch is going to work in there as well. Although these look like they're all good, but Rolex tends to have their own parts. So I'm going to be hunting through this. I'm hoping to find this type of retaining clip in there, right? So not sure if that's going to focus, but you can sort of see it. There it is there. It's kind of a weird shaped retaining clip. And maybe one of these other retaining clips would work in there. But I'm not absolutely sure. I'm going to look at that retaining clip, and I may remove the retaining clip from the other one, and just to see if that's the same size and or the same type. If I can't find the right retaining clip to throw in there. And this one here only has two little knobbies that slide in and rotate. I have to find one in here that's got two, and most of them have three, which sucks, but I might be able to do it with three if it's still the right size retaining clip. So I just have to size it up, and I'll get right back. So I think I'm going to be shit out of luck here, because these settings don't seem to want to be the right size to hold down this jewel. So I'm going to have to remove this one here and see if I can somehow repair that. Not sure if I can. Alright, this is super tricky, but I'm going to see if I can reuse this shock spring here. It's I can't think of another way of replacing it with the shock springs I have. I got a ton of them, but none of them are the ones that have a dual type. So I'll see how this fits and how it holds the jewel in place. And if I get really desperate, I'll go buy me a Rolex shock spring. I gotta figure out how to put it in though. So I'm just gonna throw the jewel in here now. So if I don't, I'll lose it. And that setting is in there now. So now I'm going to roll that shock spring back like that. I have to make sure it holds everything in place, but I gotta go under the microscope again with that shock spring. Sorry about that, guys. Alright, I got that shock spring back in place. Camera's moving a bit there, but it's back in place. I believe it'll hold, but I think what I also want to do is take a very small dab, if I can do this, of the right type of watchmaker's glue, and just where the two pieces of metal and the shock spring are touching each other, just put that down there and see if that holds that a little bit better. Just grab some HP, not HP, but I'll show you what I'm going to use. Sorry to be out of sight of mind here, but if I use some of this GS cement, hypo cement, that'll hold the shock spring, one of the arms of the shock spring down. I think it'll work like this by itself, but if I just take the smallest dab of that, the shock spring will still work, but it won't. But the thing is, it won't. It's not going to come apart where the two pieces are. So that's the only solution I have for that, I think. I could think of it more, but I'm going to use a very fine needle to put it on because I don't want this glue to be all over the damn place. I know I can get rid of it if I need to, strip everything down and get rid of it, but I think I want to do that only because I don't want that shock spring to pop out again. I'm not sure if it will. It's like, this is a gamble. I'm going to have another look at it to see if I'm going to do this. I hate using glue at all on any type of watch. Here's kind of the situation I have going on here. So I do want to have a quick look at the balance. And I already cleaned this bugger, but I'm going to look at it again to make sure I didn't F anything up. I.e. the pivots. No, it looks pretty good. Yeah, so that's good. The shock spring looks like it'll work, right? It's tucked in on one side and the other side, and there's enough metal there to hold it down. So I may just go with it the way it is, because I don't think I can find the same kind of shock spring for this watch. It would have to be super small and Rolex-like. There is one in here that looks a little bit like it might fit. It's a small ETA kind of looking shock spring, but I don't know whether the arms on it. The arms on the shock spring will extend enough to go to the other side. So where the heck was that? It was a teeny weeny one. Teeny weeny. Where the heck was that? Je cannot find it right now. It was in here somewhere. It's going to be a long video of you watching me fart around with stuff. I apologize again. See these, there's one there that looks pretty good, but again, it has to extend through the hole of that spring. So let me just take it out and have a look at what I got. So, all right, everybody out there in watch land can relax. I didn't put the glue in there. So as much as I was tempted to do so, I didn't do it. So you can relax, calm down, everything is fine. So I'm just going to tuck this in here and then just put the lid on this, because there were 0 of those Inca block springs, or whatever you want to call them, to service this watch. So what I did was I tucked the broken side under the non-broken side, which should provide enough pressure on that cap jewel to not lose it. So I'll put these parts away. I'll just put them right here, put them away later. So now I can put the balance back into the movement, which is what I've been waiting to do for a while. So we'll see if this baby's going to tick, right? Is the baby going to tick? And the good news, oh, what happened here? Something happened. The spring let go or something. What's going on here? Oh, it's the click spring. Not sure what happened. I'm going to look at it again. All right, but I was continuing to record with these watches. It's always something. So in this case, it was the click spring, and basically the spring was not allowing the click to go back because it was in the wrong place. So now it's in the right place. So now we're going to try to put the balance back in. I do say try. Usually there is no try, but in this case, I really want to try. And just see if this thing's going to work for me. All right, let's go. Let's grab this balance and just dive right in. So you got to make sure the fork is on the right side. And it is. And then I'm going to take the balance and grab it. And just be very careful with it. And I got to lift it off from this very good little Chinese movement holder. And then I'm going to enter the pallet from the other side and just put that back in nice and easy. It's got to go under the center wheel and then line up like that. So again, I'm not sure if that's going to be lined up properly, but I just want to make sure that nothing falls out. That was kind of shitty, but let me grab this again and pull it back. So it looks like the hairspring is on the wrong side. Yeah, it does look like there's a hairspring issue here. Looks like it's all bundled up on one side. I don't know why. Might be caught up in the screw there. Yeah, it is. Maybe that was a problem before and I didn't know it. Let me just get this balance out again. See if I can tip this out to remove it, but I think I need another pair of tweezers here. I don't want to stretch it, so. This is not cooperating. This is odd. I don't think the hairspring is supposed to be bunched up on one side, which it looks like it is. I may have to take the balance out completely. And look at that. See, it looks like the hairspring is kind of curved to one side. Let me just dangle that on the balance very carefully to see if something got effed up here. Shouldn't have, but it might have been the condition of this baby when from before. I'm not sure. I don't think this particular situation is going to cause me to be able to move that around. I'm trying to think of what to do here. I'm going to just remove this altogether, take that off. Just remove this, and hopefully I got enough real estate below where the hairspring is going to sit to have a look at this. Yeah, so it looks like the hairspring has just moved over a bit now. Proper thing to do would be to take the hairspring off to redo the darn thing, maybe. But I'm going to see if I can find out why is it caught somewhere? Did it bend somewhere? What the hell happened here? Because it should be that way more, and this part here should be this way more. So I'm not sure if this could be rectified right now. Because the last thing I want to do is F up a beautiful hairspring. So. But I know it's not riding along the there, I'm sort of massaging it back in place here. I know when this is all the way over, like that hairspring should be in the center. It's actually a lot better right now. So I'm just move this back over again. This old Rolex is quite the job. I'm what you call coaxing it right now, and I think I've coaxed it down the center as much as I can. I'm going to just look at how this rounds out here. Yeah, that's a hell of a lot better. Alright, let's see if I can put this back in again. Oh, I have a feeling I'm going to end up having to do more work on this balance after. I'm just praying it'll tick. Praying it will tick. So let's just put this back in again to make sure that the pellet fork is on the correct side. There we go. Alright, you bugger. Do the thing that I want you to do. I'm just going to line that up. I'll lower that onto where as close as I can to the studs. Push that down a little bit, make sure this is free. And I got ticking. I have ticking. I like the amplitude, but I do have ticking. So that is always a good sign. I'm going to put that screw back in, which is right over here. I picked it up and I put it on the piece of Rodico, as you remember from the previous video. Now maybe when that hairspring gets lined up with the screw here, let me get my very nice little holder here. Hold this thing down. And it might also need to be demagnetized. have a look at this under the microscope to see what kind of stuff I'm looking at. Yeah, this looks like it's going to need some diagnosis because I got the things ticking right now, but I don't like the fact that when I put a little pressure on the balance, I definitely don't want to shim the balance. It runs really nice sideways. Look at that. It's friggin' smoking, man. It's going like crazy sideways, so I put it like this though, and it just slows right down. So it could be the pivot on the other side, or it could be the something, but it's just upside down here. It's running extremely well. So if you could look at that, it's ticking like a crazy man, right? But when I move it this way, which means the hairspring is nice, like I did a great job on a hairspring. Turn it this way and it slows down. Turn it sideways like this, ticks like crazy. I don't think it's that lower cap jewel. Because why would it tick so well? Why would it tick so well? Let me see if it's magnetized. Let me check it out. See if that little bugger goes back and forth. Nope, no magnetism. Well, it's going to be a mystery. It's going to be a mystery. Brand new spring, ticking away, upside down, works perfect. So what is it? Anybody want to guess? Sticks a bit going upside down, run it like this, and it just goes like crazy. Sideways or upside down, it runs like a beauty. Look at that. It's a beautiful Rolex. So I'm going to stop the video right now because I'm not going to be able to succeed unless I find out what the issue is while it's running upside down. I may have to take the face off the watch and check out that that lower jewel, the pivot in there, to make sure I don't have an issue there. Because it would just sit down further. That's what it would do. And I don't know any other reason why it would slow down in this position. So you guys can send me a message and let me know. Give me a hint, maybe. And we'll see if we can figure this one out together. All right, thanks a lot. That's it. I'm tired. I'm worn out. I'm going to stop. All right, update. It just decided to go crazy on me, so it's working well, folks. Look at that friggin' amplitude. And I believe the screw is tight here. I'm just going to just play a little game here. Yep. The balance screw is tight. The Rolex is ticking like a bugger. Nice job there, JD. That's it. That's the video. I'm going to see if I can case the thing. Sorry to brag, but I just needed a close-up of this Rolex running. Look at that. It's just beautiful. It's running with an amazing amplitude, too. And one more quick video under the case. It's running beautifully. Hey, welcome back. It is the morning now, and I'm going to reassemble the rest of this watch. As you can see, the movement is running really well right now, which makes me happy. I've got to put this gear in, which is pressed in, and you press it down onto this pivot. And you press it down like this into this pivot. So it's a little bit tricky because you've got to have the right pivot. And then when you press it down, I figured I'd just press it down with one of these, a stake, and just press it straight down. I can get a little closer probably, right? So you can see what the heck is going on. There we go. And just press that straight down. I believe that's all that needs to be done for that. And then there is a very small, this is where the seconds hand fits in. So you push that right through the center. Like so, and then it meshes with this gear, and you can see the gear turning. And the tricky part for me was there's this small arm here that's used to hold that in place. In fact, that arm pushes down on that, and it belongs right over the winding wheel, the upper winding wheel here. So it's a little tricky to get back together. With any luck, I'll be able to do that. So there we go. And when I push that the second hand back on, I'm hoping that I got a good brace there, because I don't want the second hand then to fall off. So that's like that. I got the sniffles this morning. Sniffleophagus. Just tighten this up just a little bit here. There we go. Now, this could be a bit of an adventure, I think. Whenever you're doing stuff like this, it's things move. You want to make sure that that little piece of metal there is right above that pinion. So there you go. See, everything moved. I can probably put this in the screw in. Without worrying where that piece of metal is. I think I may have to use the stick. So I don't think this is going to go in easy. It seemed like it was. So I just did the driveway, so I'm a little shaky right now. And that's probably not good. Just a little tiny bit shaky. Just push that, nudge that up here. Like that. And I don't want that to be resting on that wheel, because I don't want any pressure on that wheel at all, because that's the wheel I pushed on. Of course it snags up on the friggin' wheel, right? And then it disappears, you know. Where the hell is it? There it is. It's the small stuff that just, if you don't do a Rolex a day, this stuff here just pisses you off, because you're trying to get things all organized and things fly off. So maybe I can just rest it like this. Like that. And then I just want to have my stick on that so it rests wherever that hole is. There we go. Right there. And I'm not sure if my stick will be able to hold that nicely or not. If I use a flat part, maybe it's good. But there we go. Done. So that stick is actually amazing. If you guys haven't gotten a stick like this before, go get it, because that is so good. Just aligns things nicely. It keeps things in place while you're moving other things in place. And I watched a very famous watchmaking instructor use that stick in one of his videos of maintaining the Valjour watch. So I've got to tighten this now. So I'm going to press down on this just a bit. Alright, that's in. Now I'm watching that wheel very carefully to see that it's turning. Now if you look at that very carefully, you'll see that that wheel is in fact turning. So that turns the second hand. Now the tricky part here is when I push the second hand in, I don't want to have a problem where the base has got an issue, right? So I think I probably need to flip this around to put the second hand or the hands on properly. And I want this to be resting against something solid. So when I push down, it doesn't just push this that doesn't just push that straight up again, right? That would be trays upsetting. Right, so that's likely what I need to do, right? And I got to take the power off the watch right now, which is always fun. So just advance this just a bit, get the click spring out of the way, and then let it ride back. I did that with a screwdriver last time, and it's not necessary now because I've got the stem in. And I still have the stem adjust spring to deal with after. So the power is now off the watch. And the reason I'm taking the power off the watch is because I'm going to have to put the rotor back on at some point in time. But just like I did before, I think I'll wait till I have the hands on and then put the rotor back on. Because I don't think this would work the other way. I think if I push the seconds hand back on, it's likely going to push this straight up, and then I got another issue, right? So let me just look. I want to move this out of the way, and I could probably use my the box I have for my screwdrivers to give me some base to push that back on. I don't think I want to use metal because it's a bit, there's no give on it at all. So if I use this and I just find a place here, I can put the movement down, and I just want that second, that center pivot to be supported when I push the second hand on. So not sure if this is the right way to do it, but I can't push the second hand on, I don't think, until I get everything else on. So we got to get the other hands on first, because I'm not going to put the rotor back in until I've got the other stuff back in. I am a little shaky this morning because of that snow plowing. So it's not a big problem. So I'll just be a good boy and try to line it all up now, because you can just put that down and line it up later. But this is extremely vintage. It's a high-end vintage watch. So I'm just going to push this down. Probably likely use this part of the pusher. I got a set of other pushers that I have that would also work. So that's in. And I'm just going to lift the box up to look underneath to see if I've got clearance. Yeah, it looks like I just have clearance. You want to be able to clear the all the Rolex symbols and stuff, right, when you put this back. So that's one hand on. It's one hand Luke. I very carefully, I didn't bother cleaning the hands because I figured, like somebody said before, leave it vintage, don't fart with it. So I want to make sure this stays very vintage looking. And right now it looks pretty friggin' vintage. That's one of the harder things to do, is putting hands back on if it's not a if it's a pocket watch. I find it's pretty easy, but it's pretty good there, except I like to move it just a tad. It's like they're going to pop off on me. That's friggin' perfect right there. Right there. So, let me get my pusher out here. I need to use a smaller pusher on this one here, but I gotta clear. I think I'm good because I gotta clear that pivot in the middle when I push this thing down. Alright, I think that's down. And I know it's clearing the pivot. And I now need to just rock it forward just a tad. Just like that. And now I'm going to just have a look at this to make sure that I've got everything cleared there. I have enough pivot left for the second hand, and everything is kind of in place. I wonder if I can move the hands here. See that they're clearing everything, and they seem to be, yeah, they're clearing everything, so I think that's pretty good there. I don't like moving this backwards, but for now I'll do it. So there it is there. Now I've got the tricky part. Now I've got to put the seconds hand on and make sure it doesn't snag. Plus I have to find it. There it is. There's the seconds hand here. Very vintage looking. And this just goes on the top. So I'm going to grab it with my tweezers and make sure that pipe is exposed, because I don't need to be the second hand to be right over the top of everything. So it's okay if it's slightly off. Now I need to have I've got a soft thingamajobby doohickey here that I can use. And I think I want to get an angle on this as I push it down. There we go. Now, is that too high or too low? I got to wind this and just look at this as I move the hand here and see how tight that is. Ah, that's pretty good. That's pretty friggin' good. It clears it nicely. I just move that sideways, as you can see that. Hard to see the clearance when I'm doing it this way, but let me see if I can get it to focus. There it is there. And you can see that the second hand, see that gap there? It does clear the minute hand. So we're good. So now I got to get rid of this box because it's of no purpose anymore. The second hand is on. Flip this around. Right, and I'm going to give it a bit of juice here. Well, actually, I don't want to yet, because I now, let me see if I can, if I have this like this, the hands are close to the lip. So what I'll do is I'll move the hands so they're a little bit over. And I can just put just a slight bit of, push that in and put a slight bit of wind on the, there we go. And a little more. So just turn it with my wrist and it should stop. There we go. Now I can pull that out again and set the, trying to get the second hand not to move. Set the watch like that. If I get it to move to the other side, then that's fine. Because I just want it to be clear of my holder, my movement holder. I know I don't have my glove on, but I'm touching the edge of the watch, so it shouldn't be any issue there. And again, you guys can criticize, comment, do what you want. So I'm just giving it a little shake, and then the balance is very little pressure on the mainspring. So there we go there. Now, like I did before, I'm going to case this movement before I put the rotor on. So, and I saw people, like, I'm just doing it backwards because people were casing the movement. Like, you can put the rotor on and then case the movement. Or you can case the movement and put the rotor on, one way or the other, right? So, but one thing I got to do is figure out, maybe I'll put the rotor on now. These screws right here, I put these screws back in place here to hold this plate down, to make sure that this was all in place to allow me to well, first thing I did was I was able to put the mainspring in the barrel, and then when I pushed the cannon pinion back on, this plate popped off, and so I quickly removed the cannon pinion, popped the plate, put that plate back on, and then put these screws back in. But these screws, I believe, belong in position when the rotor is on. So I want to make sure that rotor is in position. So I got to put a glove on for this because the rotor is, I don't want to touch the rotor without a glove on. So now, Peter, you better be watching this whole video. I'll be upset. So, and show it to Ben as well, okay? So, because he's going to be he's going to be a watchmaker someday. I know it. I know it. I wrote it. Now again, the plate, the actual rotor. This is what the rotor looks like. Get everything out of the way again. This is what the rotor looks like, right? And it goes down like this. And then the plate goes down, and I just have to make sure I know which way that plate goes when I put that back in. There's a number of screws, as you can see here, and they should line up perfectly when I put this down. And then there's a gear that's gonna, this gear, the pinion on this gear right here. Will that zoom for me? Probably not. You just flip this over here so you can see it. So there. So this pinion here has got to interact. Trying to think where it interacts. It's got to interact with, I believe, might be the center wheel. So I think the center wheel is probably the one that pushes that gear there. But actually it's for winding, so it might interact with this wheel here, because it is used for winding the watch. So first thing I'm going to do is very carefully remove these screws again. I don't like doing that because I'm going to take the power off the watch again to make sure that I get zero power on this watch. And then, let me see, I just want to move that out of the way, and I'll let that flip because I did put a little tiny bit of power on the watch. And before I tuck everything in, I'm just going to see if there's anything here that I can touch up with Rodico. And That should all be fancy dancy good. I did oil all this stuff earlier, so that should be good as well. Yeah, you know what? That pinion, I think it goes right in where that hole is, right there. Because that hole right there is attached to this here, which the winding would move this. So that's where the pinion goes. So that makes perfect sense. So the alignment shouldn't be that bad, but I can be a good boy and put a little tiny bit of oil, HP 1300, right here. And that'll spread that around without a problem. Yeah, that'll help it in the winding, right? Now, like I said before, there are 3 screws here. 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to look at my pictures to see if I've got a picture of some sort that shows the shiny screws versus the non-shiny screws. Otherwise, I got to look at my disassembly video. All right, looking at another video, it looks like those screws might be able to stay where they are. I am hoping. Not praying yet, I'm just hoping. So, one of my screwdrivers is magnetized, I think the yellow ones. Yeah, I tightened those down already. So let me just see if this will plop on for me, or whether I have to remove those screws. Right? Right. So I'm just going to put this on, and I know where that, I can see where that, the other thing goes, eh? So if I grab it like this too, I can wind that up, because it goes this way a bit. So we want to rotate this like that, and then have that lined up. Steadying it. Looks like these 2 screws here are the ones that go over this. They just go over the top of it. There we go. There, just like that. So these 2 existing screws, they had holes in there to be able to go over the top, and these screws, and of course I'm going to put these in but not tighten them down, but these screws are the ones that get my screwdriver here, these are the ones that hold the winding mechanism down. So I'm just going to turn these in like that, not tighten them completely yet. I just want to make sure the winding mechanism's in place, is in fact working. I don't know if I showed it in my disassembly video or my cleaning, but I did take the whole winding mechanism apart and oiled it. It was pretty simple, actually. It scared me initially, and then I was like, okay. You know, and when you're doing watch repair, watchmaking, whatever you want to call it, you can't be too afraid of things, okay? Because if you are, you'll never do the job. It's just too damn scary. Too damn scary. Move that over a bit here, so. And I gotta demagnetize. I can see a little piece of friggin' thread on that screw. I gotta grab my Rotico. I just want to make sure this is on well before I fart around with it. So you see it moving. I just want to make sure it's moving. It's moving the mainspring, and all the gaps are good. Yeah, I'm hearing the click spring go. So now I want to look at the movement on the side, because I've got that screwed down. But are there any issues there? I don't think so. So I'm going to put a little bit of power on the watch now, and I can feel that the actual winding mechanism here, the automatic winding mechanism, is actually moving right now as well. And I get the balance ticking away here. Oh, something is stuck. I don't like that. Let me move this here. Nothing should get stuck. Oh, there we go. I'm going to look at the barrel as I'm turning this. Because that would give me a good indication as to whether it's winding properly. Oh, I see a little piece of friggin' Rodico, or not Rodico, some little piece of something, and that'll stop the watch for sure. Yeah, but the ratchet's moving like crazy, which is good. It's I got a lot of stuff happening here, and I want to make sure that the movement is actually working, because I wound it a lot. Oh, you know what? The hand might be touching the edge of the friggin' holder. The second hand. I had to keep an eye on that second hand as it went around, because I figured it might have touched the edge of that holder. So there we go. Now it's flinging away. And just check it, make sure it clears. This is all touchy stuff, man. See, I figured the holder was holding the second hand, which is causing if the second hand gets stuck, nothing moves. That's basically what happens in one of these watches. So I'm just going to wait for it to clear that the minute hand again, just so I don't have an issue. Because everything is pretty tight there. Now it's coming around. It's coming around. It should clear it without a problem. And I'm watching it, and no issue. It just cleared it without a problem. So now the watch will actually wind now. I'm just going to hold it like this for a second, because what I want to do now is put a little bit of oil on some of these pivots. Like this one here, right there. And then the other one, and again, like I did before, and then there's one more that's kind of hiding. It's right in there. And that will do. It's ticking away nicely now. So now I got to case this bugger before I screw everything up. Alright, I'm not sure whether I had my recording on or not, but hopefully I had it on and you saw me put the rotor back on, right? I got to stop touching the balance on stuff. Anyway, the rotor's back on. I oiled the 3 spots on the rotor where the jewels are, right there, as you can see. I just oiled those. I just realized that I had my camera off for a second. So there it is there. And I'm going to check out the case here before I case it, and just get rid of anything that shouldn't be in there. The case itself, I think, has never ever been opened. so it's pretty immaculate on the inside. It's I don't think I want to throw it in my ultrasonic cleaner, but I'm not completely sure of that. I might toss it in and just give it a quick ultrasonic cleaning. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to cover the watch up like that, and I'll be right back. So I've got two ultrasonic cleaners. I have a huge one downstairs that I've used for a lot of things, and I've got this little small one here that I find is pretty handy because you can throw things in here and they'll clean up pretty quick. And sometimes I'll put the parts into a jar and then I'll put them into the ultrasonic cleaner. Alright, this is kind of how I stacked it in the ultrasonic cleaner. I didn't want the movement to fly around anywhere, so I found my bold jar that I use for cleaning pocket watch parts. Watch check, Hamilton GMT, very beautiful watch. So that's how I've got it stacked. So I've got to add this ultrasonic cleaning concentrate here. So you don't have to put much in there when you put the water in. And then away you go. Alright, after ultrasonic cleaning everything, I ended up having to go inside the strap where there was tons of crud even after ultrasonic cleaning. And I went in there with a water pick, and I put the water pick on 100%, like 10 or whatever, and just water pick the crap out of it. And I'm telling you, there was dirt coming out of every crevice. And then this watch here, it's looking pretty nice right now. I'm just going to air dry it because I got a bottle of dust off, and I'm just going to air dry this nicely. Not terribly tricky, but a little tricky. Stem comes out. The watch down again. And now I want to case this watch. I've aired this out, air dried the crap out of this, and I puffed the watch on the outside, so this should just be able to go right in, like so. Like that. Now I could flip this and then put the stem in. That might be the easiest way to do it. Just flip it like that. Now I've got the watch in the case. And now I can just, I know to actually get this aligned properly with the screws, I actually have to rotate it into position. So there is a gap in the movement right there, and you got to sort of twist this around, get to that gap, and then get the two sides of the movement aligned. Because what happens with this movement is that it basically trying to turn it here. It needs to be aligned with this before it can sit down and get this little tiny washer on the inside, which is a pain in the butt, but look how nicely it's ticking here. And there's the other side of this, right? So, and these two screws then go up. So I've got to somehow turn this, rotate it. So I may want to use screwdrivers to do this. I don't need to put it on my pad because my desk pad is pretty darn good. So I think there's a hole here. I can grab another one on this side and just see if I can just put my finger down to hold the case in place. And there we go. So now it fell in to that hole. Again, I'm going to look on the other side here. Make sure that's in too. Yep. So now when I rotate that, the washer that's on the inside should be able to get in there. I gotta move my camera out of the way because I keep hitting it with my lens. I apologize. I apologize. Apologize. So now we gotta rotate it the other way, and I'll use my two screwdrivers again too because I need something stiff. The good news is that the movement is running really well right now. The bad news is I'm gonna rotate the damn thing again. And I got to make sure I rotate it in the right direction. I don't want to touch the rotor with a piece of metal. I just want to move it out of the way. And there's where I have to rotate. So I got to rotate it this way to get it into the right place. So this is rotating nicely, actually. And I'm going to check to make sure that other washer is also in place. Right, so just turn that around like that. And I should be able to get the stem in now. But I'm going to check that other washer in a second here. The stem is pretty much in, but I got to rotate that out of the way and check that other washer. And yeah, the other washer is also tucked in there nicely. So you can see that right by the right there. And the washer is tucked in there, so I can actually, what I do is I actually loosen these screws. They go up instead of down. And I want to get the right screwdriver here to do this with. Everything seems to be, let me see if I can, is that in or what? It's in winding mode here, but you want to be able to press it all the way in. So maybe the screw here, I need to turn the screw that's inside there just a tad, because I had to loosen it before. So if I tighten it now, is it going to grab the stem properly? Let me see. Yeah. Yeah, so it should be able to set the time now. So I'm going to tighten this crown down. I'm going to oil it after, but I'm going to tighten the crown down right now just to get it out of the way. Like that. That way I know everything is kind of aligned properly. And then move this. I still have to check to make sure that the second hand is sweeping nicely, and that balance is just ticking so nicely. It's just making me very happy. Happy and proud that I did a good job. So all I do there is turn that. I don't want to use my yellow screwdriver because it's magnetized, baby. It's magnetized. So I just want to turn it counterclockwise a bit. There, that tucks it in nicely, and then get the other side. See if the rotor will be my friend. Where is this? That's right here. So I just have to make sure that washer is tucked in under the lip. It's a little tricky because you got to have the washer tucked in under the lip while you're turning the screw and trying to make sure the washer doesn't go anywhere. It wants to turn. Is that good or not? Oh yeah, that's good there. Alright, that's in super tight. Now let me look and see if everything else is good still. Yeah. There's the watch ticking like it belongs. It's such a thing. It's such a nice thing to see that tick like that. I had to tighten down these screws. It was the last thing I wanted to do. Make sure the rotor doesn't decide to go somewhere, because I had to loosen those screws before to get a piece of it. But there we go. And then this one here, these two are pretty solid because they're holding the plate in. So that's it, folks. I do need to put, look at that. That is friggin' nice, eh? And if I were to turn that around, that's going to stay in place without a problem. Look at that. There we've got ourselves a beautiful Rolex. Like new. I just have to put that strap back on now. And I want to put a gasket on the back, so I've got to go to my department of gaskets and get myself a nice gasket to put in place here. I'll probably replace these for the strap as well. So, but that's not, I don't need to show you folks how I put a gasket in, but I'll just put this on for now without a gasket. All right, folks, there it is. There's the Rolex Oyster Perpetual Explorer Precision. Done. Beautiful gold Rolex watch. Completely cleaned, maintained, fixed. A lot of work went into this watch to get this going again, and now it's working. And I'd just like to thank you for watching my channel, and thank you for allowing me to show you how to strip this Rolex down and how to put it back together again. So I'm JD. Please subscribe to my channel and pass this video along. It's a long one today, so if you've got nothing to do on a Sunday, you can just watch this video. So thanks a lot to my subscribers. I got a lot of great comments from people out there, some very funny comments. I do show whatever mistakes I make. I do not have a manual to repair this Rolex. I am not a Rolex maintainer by any means, so I don't certify my work from a Rolex perspective. But I have done a few Rolexes now, and I'm very proud of what I've done, and they're working nicely. So thanks a lot, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.